on YouTube. And I've done them in the past, but I was live streaming on TikTok for a really long time. Now getting back into it, and I think I'm going to use YouTube as my primary media. So I have yet to kind of fix some of the kinks here. So I'm going to actually try and see if I can go look at my live on my laptop, because I really like being able to at least see how things are looking and respond to comments and do all of that stuff. Also gonna just have a little audio reverb here. Let's see if this sounds right. Yep, sounds good. Cool. So nice. How do I open this panel for the live chat? There it is. Cool. Yeah. Type something real quick. Yep. So I have like no YouTube viewership, which is totally fine by me. Today we are working on this interesting commission, and I've yet to really do a good level of blocking on this piece. I'm kind of trying to think of the best way that I can go about this and get this done in kind of the right order here. I like to really do things as we have this sort of receding, like the first step that I had in making this painting was just to get the basic shapes and kind of to articulate my process here. I've started really being a lot better about painting things in the background first, coming into the foreground, always trying to paint thick over thin. But now that I'm looking at this, I do kind of want to get this nice cloud mask that I have in here done a little bit thicker with the knife, because I have a house that's going to sit right here, as well as some bushes and that kind of thing. And then there's like a nice big tree that's like right here, essentially. Another tiny, tiny peak of a house right here. And we've got a lot of blues and things. Really interesting stuff. So I have been very lazy with my palette. And so I'm going to just take a quick second here to do some scraping, just so that I can get some nice folds. One of the things that I like to do with my style in particular is to craft a really nice, good glob of paint on the end of a palette knife. And I use a glass palette, and it makes it a lot easier to get the right consistency of a stroke on the knife. So a little bit disorganized here, kind of got a crazy paper towel palette, and that's a-okay by me. I should probably clean this up just a smidge. We'll do that right now. Just gonna ditch some of these. But yeah, just offering a little peek into the process here. And I was doing a lot of live streaming on TikTok around this time last year. And the thing about TikTok that is really fun is that it's good for discoverability, but you can't really like save your live streams. And there are quite a few times that I was like, oh man, I really wish that I painted something live, and I wish that I had the way to actually go back and watch it, because I was like, I don't remember what color I used for this thing or whatever. So, shit, I just got oil flecks everywhere. That's okay. Not a huge deal. So, yeah, it's hopefully going to be a new experience here. I actually couldn't even go live on TikTok for quite a while. And yeah, kind of interesting. Give me 1 second here, real quick. Just grabbing this guy, because I did make a huge mess. I'm just gonna get these a little bit in the right spots. Can clean this up later, but I'm gonna go sweep these straight at you. Everything was dry. I have like just a stupid amount of dry old pigment on my palette. Cool. So again, I think we're gonna use, I'm pretty confident that the blue that I used for this was Prussian blue, and I definitely had a lot of white and Portland Cool Gray. I think what I wanna do is get down this cloud layer, which is deceiving in that I'm expecting that it's gonna be a lot of white, but it's really not. So we're gonna get a little bit again of Prussian blue, and yeah. And I encourage you guys, if anybody's in this live stream and you want to say what's up, you want to ask about art or fitness stuff, go right for it. And typically when I do these live streams on TikTok, I also have my weight, and we will often take a break to do some weightlifting, which is always a fun time. I think there's like a substantial overlap between painting and physical fitness in that they are both pursuits of kind of this long-term, you have to have long-term recognition in what you're doing, and you have to be in love with the process rather than necessarily indexing on the result right away. I also think that there's a substantial impact to the recognition in body awareness as a driver for good art and good fitness goals and gains. So more on that later. Get some soft mixing white. Cool. Kind of nice actually live streaming on YouTube, because sometimes I just have too much going on in TikTok, and it makes it not distracting, but yeah, I would call it distracting. It's somewhat distracting. So I think I'm gonna use this slightly diluted blue here. This is not terrible for the blue that I have already established. Basically just Portland Cool Gray, but I do want to make it a little bit more vibrant. Gonna up the saturation on this Prussian blue just a smidge here. Just kind of see how that feels up here. That's pretty close. It's not quite actually dark enough. So I'm gonna start with that first. I'm gonna use kind of this darkest dark in my sky. We have kind of two spots for that. There's a section down here and a section up here. So let's get those going. If I can finish the sky layer today, I'm gonna be really happy. And then I have another commission that I need to start working on. Okay, that's a little bit closer. I think this is gonna work in the context of the rest of my painting. I was gonna use a very dark, like near brown color for this house. Kind of a reddish, well, not quite. Yeah, so let's just get some of this on here, nothing crazy. It's still in that like thin layer more than anything else. Yeah, and the section over here is actually a little bit more gray, slightly less blue. So in thinking about that, I think I used light red for my red here. I'm kind of tempted to add my Naples yellow red mix into this and make that my dark gray here. I think that should be okay. Because again, this is like, I want this to be a little bit more on the saturated side up here. Have this be a little bit darker and a little bit grayer. So let's get that going real quick. And both light red and Naples yellow are kind of unfortunate choices for mixing such a gray. Here's Naples. It's, I don't know, it's one of those things that's, it's gonna make it a lot lighter. Am I still live? Is it still going? For some reason I got a moderation notice. Something about adding a moderator. I don't have a moderator. Who knows? Yo, what's up, Bentley Replay? How's it going? What's good on this? It's today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, it's totally Wednesday. My dudes, as they say. Cool. Okay. And I just did some live painting out at an event in downtown Phoenix, and in that event, I packed all of my paints into this bag, and now they're all so messy. And I'm like a pretty clean oil painter. I paint out of my home studio, so I try not to go too crazy with getting oil all over my apartment. And it bugs me when I have paint all over my tubes because then I'm gonna end up tracking it inevitably. But yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been slow going on this commission here, but I think with art, it's kind of one of those things that you really do have to carve out time in order to work on stuff, even when you're at a state where you feel like you have some level of production in place. And I feel like I don't know, how much deep dive should I give here? So, in a little bit of background about myself, I left my job to be like a kind of full-time artist about a year ago, and I've sold art before, but fairly recently I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a full-time go here. So in doing that, I have tried to devote more and more time to painting. I've gotten some commissions, I've gotten some work going, but it's kind of a new lifestyle, honestly. There's a lot that has to be balanced, and I'm trying to make more content and just kind of stay on the game there. Okay, this is looking a little bit better here. A little grayer. That might be a little too dark, actually. I think that's probably okay. Maybe a smidge too dark. We'll go with it. We'll go with it. And no, I am gonna add just a tiniest fleck of white here. Probably need a little more than that. But yeah, before this, I used to be a software engineer, and I moved back to Phoenix in order to pursue making art full time. And when I say pursue making art, it's full time. It's not quite accurate in that I don't really want to be like a full time artist. I kind of want to do a lot of different things. Okay, I think this looks good. So we're gonna start this. We have to decide exactly where the cloud is, and it pretty much starts sort of the bottom edge. Pretty much starts halfway up the canvas, and then it comes to not quite, maybe like right here. Sort of a descending cloud here. So there's my spot. Everything going up from there, I think that should be okay. Get this on here. Good morning. What's up, Dylan? How's it going? Got a little bit too much paint sitting on the low side of this here. Sort of comes down and then back out again. A little bit of a weird jagged line here. I really do like painting the sky of things. I feel like you can get a little bit wavy with it, and it's no big deal. Kind of in most of my style, I like to get a little bit wavy with it. It's probably a little bit too much dark paint, I'm not gonna lie. And then this line is like really pretty much barely there. But I do want it to be a strong line. Probably gonna come back over this one. Cool. I gotta make my laptop so that it doesn't stop. Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm also in Arizona here. Are you in Phoenix or somewhere else in Arizona? It's been nicer lately. We've had a little bit of rain, which is great. Okay, so that looks good. Let's get this other like slightly. So this cloud is the near cloud. It's a little bit grayer, and then we've got more atmosphere as we go further back into this kind of like slightly bluer. I made this a little bit too light on the first pass here. So we are going to mix this new blue again. I'm going to do the outline of the cloud here. Yeah, we're going to use this blue. We're going to take a little bit of this grayer mix and mix it in with what we already have for the blue, which I don't think I'm going to need that again. I think I'm okay without that. Slightly bluer up top too. Those are kind of off actually. Let's see. They're pretty close. I'm gonna just actually roll with this. Slightly less saturated. Let's take this and mix this in here. Slightly less saturated. Needs to come up just a smidge. In value, yeah, okay. So we're gonna mix this gray in, make it a little bit lighter. I will say the one advantage of streaming on TikTok that I had recently done is that you can play music and it's chill. Okay, I think I'm gonna wash this out even more. Because I don't want it to be too stark against my light clouds here. Cool. Surprise, nice, that's great. I will head in that direction and do rock climbing from time to time. Okay, that doesn't feel too bad here. Let's just feel directly against this. I kind of like that. I think it's still a little bit too dark. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. There we go. Yeah, I think that'll be good for the purposes of what we're doing here today. Kind of a massive departure from what we were doing just earlier, but I think that'll be all right. And then yeah, we've got this line that kind of comes up. Our cloud sort of sits up high on here. And we've got another cloud that floats behind this whole one. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to kind of refine the hillside that I was working with. Which I think I got the line pretty much in the right spot, so I'm not really going to stress about it. I do think it needs to jut down a little bit more. So we're going to try that. So it does this dip right here. Actually, it's further left. It kind of dips down. Something like that. Maybe that wasn't quite exaggerated enough, but I think that should be okay. Cool. Love the rain. Yeah, I mean, so Queen Creek Canyon has climbing down that way. I go, there's a spot called Atlantis and then the Pond. Those are like two really good climbing spots. How often do you think you'll be doing these lives? So I used to live stream a lot on TikTok, like multiple times a week. I'm hoping to do these quite a bit now. I'm pivoting over to YouTube for my live streams and hopefully more long form content. So hard to say exactly, but should be aiming for a couple times a week. That kind of was my cadence on TikTok. So we're gonna try that here. Bring this down just a little bit more again. Okay. And then we've got what appears to be even slightly grayer up here. Actually, they're pretty much the same color. I don't need to get crazy with it. Let's save some of this paint and then pull a little bit more white. Yeah, should be a good cadence. We'll see. So I encourage, if you want to follow me here, appreciate it. If you use other socials, that's just fine and good as well. I don't know as well if people who watch lives, I mean, on TikTok, everything is like portrait, but if horizontal, like landscape orientation for my phone would be better, let me know. Shoot me something. Okay, let's see if I can nail this color mix. Looks a little bit too light to me. Yeah, just a little bit. Pretty close. Okay. So again, this is kind of all the way up top here. That's maybe not quite in the right spot. Gonna put some clouds up here anyway, so get kind of a nice blend into this. I do most of my painting with a palette knife, and it makes it kind of weird trying to make like sort of these firm edges. Or like crafting a soft edge with a palette knife is not really the easiest thing to do. I don't love doing a lot of blending. I like do this sort of par blending thing where I will blend it some amount of the way on the palette, and then I will attack it on the canvas and try to see about going wet on wet. And that works a decent, it's kind of unpredictable at times, which I think in painting is kind of fun. Sort of like how watercolor has this effect of you can't always predict what the water's going to do. Okay. You follow me on IG. Awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah, shoot me a DM over there. I'm not sure if we already connected or not. It's tough on different socials because it's like, are you one of the Dylans I already know, or are you a Dylan of some other Dylan? Sometimes it's hard to tell, you know. Um, okay, that looks good. I think we're gonna finish this out over on this side. Just use all this paint here. Hopefully that's I mean that in the kindest way. It's kind of hard to keep track. I was just having a conversation with somebody about sort of like phone usage and that kind of thing because I do feel like it's really tough. One of the things that is hard about being an artist or being like running your own business or anything, and it's sort of the thing that I've endeavored lately is to make more content and be kind of engrossed in the social media ecosystem. But it's hard because you have to be kind of attentive to your phone and all this other stuff. And it's kind of a lot to juggle. And like, I think especially when painting, it's really hard to have so many different inputs. Okay, I'd like to think that this is going in the right direction. It's maybe still a little oversaturated. I think it's because I have this Naples yellow down here and the Portland cool gray on the rest of this painting is making everything just feel really like sharp, which is fine for the time being. Um, we will sort of evolve that over time. Because I think I started this off. It was kind of drab. I was like looking at it and it was just sitting on my wall and I was like, yeah, this painting so far, nothing about it is speaking to me. But that's just kind of how it goes, you know? Like when you first start painting, it's gonna feel really simplistic and sometimes flat. Um, would love to figure out ways to make that a little bit quicker so that it's not so flat right away, but you replied to a couple of my comments. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll have to go back through and take a peek because again, I don't recognize the rest of your YouTube handle here. So appreciate it though. Glad to connect. Okay, I got to get a little bit more of this color here. I don't think I want this to be any lighter actually. There are like clouds sort of sitting in the background, which I don't think I need to nail this just right. That's pretty close, actually. It's kind of funny because now, so when I first started this painting, I was working from my render. And the render I think was a lot less saturated. I didn't have too much going on in terms of like the vibrancy of the clouds or anything like that. And in doing so, it's okay. We're gonna actually trim this down. I think I went a little bit too crazy. This is way too high. Yeah, that line speaks to me a little bit better. But yeah, I try to use the render just to get like a loose sense of composition more than anything else. And then oil colors will not, it's not going to immediately translate. So can't be too dedicated to the things that you've already put down. Although you do want to get them as close to right, as close to correct as you can on the first pass. Okay, that's looking pretty decent. Do we have any other spots for this? Not really. And again, we're gonna maybe mix in a smidge of this gray up here because I do kind of want to use that. Especially up here. Okay. Yeah, that's coming along nice. So the next thing is we have some like kind of softer, slightly softer gray into these clouds. We're going to use more of this Portland Cool Gray. Nice. And I think I could even use this color. Let's think about this. Let's add a little bit more red and a little bit more yellow. That was maybe way too much. Sort of amending my gray with my own mix. And then we're gonna lighten this up. Not too much because I still want like a good amount. Really the lightest part in this painting is this cloud right here. And then everything else is kind of it's pretty soft. So let's get that like pretty big mass of dark in, which kind of is like a couple shapes for these clouds. This whole side is like pretty gray. So let's try this. That's like almost right. I feel like in the context of this blue that I've laid, that's actually not too far off. do want to lighten it up a good amount though. That's a little too cool for me. Although kind of an interesting effect now that I'm looking at it. I think I'm actually gonna roll with this. This is really weird. It's like pretty green, but so is the gray in the reference. So yeah, we're gonna try that actually. I kind of like that. I think that'll balance with the maples really well. So this, we've got, oh, there's actually a little bit of white there, but I'm gonna just smack this on here. Yeah. Really weird, cool color though. So I think I'm gonna simplify and just everything that's not in this first cloud mass. Got the thing that comes down here. This goes all off to this side. Comes down, comes back up. Shoots back over. Cool. And then this cloud kind of comes back down. It gets pretty dark again. This other cloud that's pretty much where I put it the first time. Piece on the wall reminds me of Rodin. Cool. Yeah, this was I painted this fairly recently, and it's a copy of a Van Gogh piece. So he did a painting of a taxidermied bat that I really enjoyed, and I decided to do it. It took me a long time to actually like get the motivation to finish it. I started it and then it just like sat on my wall incomplete for a really long time. And then I finally was able to get it done, and now I want to paint it again, but on a much larger scale. I think it would be really cool as like a 5-foot wide painting. So I'm gonna try that at some point down the line here. Okay. Cool. I can see how this is gonna evolve. Love his work. Yeah, that's Van Gogh is one of my favorite artists. I don't know too much about Rodin actually. I'll have to look him up. I usually use for a lot of my artistic inspiration, I'll get like these Taschen books, and I couldn't recommend them enough if you're into art. I've got 3 over there, and I have a Monet, a Van Gogh, and a Leonardo da Vinci, and it's just like a compilation of a lot of their work done in such a way that it's really easy to just thumb through, and yeah, it's really enjoyable stuff. So okay, we're gonna try to get this. I think I need a lot of white for this. So weird looking at this color on my palette because it doesn't look green, and then when I actually put it on the canvas in the context of my painting, it's way greener. Okay, that's looking good to me. We're gonna go do this other side. As I mentioned, there's like a bit of a lighter patch that sits pretty much, let's draw this line in here. Sits above this point. This pretty much carries us to the peak that we already established over here. And I'm tempted to go, we're gonna take a quick little break. I'm gonna get some coffee going and do some curls, because why not? Cool. And I will need to find a good way to actually make some amount of a blend between these two that I've already done here. I don't actually think I carried this blue over quite enough, but they're clouds, so they can be a little bit wavy. I'm not gonna stress about it too much here. Probably will need to add more blue. All right. Yeah, and then pretty much everything else off to this side is this color, which is our kind of faux gray that we were using. I actually do think I'm gonna lighten it up because this is darker than this. So let's make that change now. Again, I need to leave myself some room for my values so that I'm not going too crazy. But I think something a little bit lighter is probably good. And this gray is, again, very, very cool. Toho and the creators of Godzilla. Oh, okay, huh. Yeah, I'm actually not familiar. I'll have to look that up. Very cool. Yeah. I always love hearing about new art and new like artists that I'm not super familiar with. Okay, quick little hiatus. Yeah, and the rest of today, what else am I planning on doing? I'm gonna wash my hands here real quick. Sorry about this. It's kind of an awkward thing for a live stream, but maybe you can see me. I don't know if I'm in camera here. I've got a lot of craziness going on in the back of my apartment, so kind of hoping that you can't. But yeah, I'm planning on going to the cafe today. I've got a few tasks that I was planning on doing. It's the first of the month, so I was going to write up a quick little synopsis of my month. Yeah, cool. And yeah, just kind of roughly figuring out the way that I want to go about next month. Because I have been painting a lot, but September was not really like a high production month for me for painting. And I did a lot more in the way of like events and trying to get my work out there and that sort of thing. And now I am thinking more about fitness stuff. So I have been trying to work on some digital products for fitness, and I re-released my workout routine that I generally adhere to, and I published a really long document on all of the like distilled fitness tips that I can offer. And I'm currently working on a like a kettlebell routine for people who want to start getting into fitness, but they find that the gym is like really intimidating and all of that stuff. So out of shot. Okay, yeah, I figured. Kind of good, honestly, for the better. So yeah, I do really think that there are a lot of ways to get started with fitness that are like people make things harder than they ought to be. And I think this is true in a lot of cases. I found this to be true for something that I was working on fairly recently, which is some of my media stuff. And I still have a little bit of coffee, mostly water. Yeah, like I found this to be true for myself recently. I had a discussion with another creator, and he was kind of giving me some advice in order to potentially get some like brand deals or do some like user generated content for branding. I haven't done any of that, and I haven't really found good ways to monetize any of my social media um, outside of trying to direct traffic to my website, which offers art and fitness stuff. So that has gone well, except for the fact that it is a really slow build. I've been working on it for roughly a year, and it's going, certainly showing that there's premise, but everything takes longer than you think. With that being said, he was like, oh, you can just basically put like a little draft together. Don't like, I've heard like, oh, you have to have a media kit and all of this like really sophisticated stuff. So I punted on starting it. I've been like, nah, I'm not going to go for it. And he was like, yeah, just like shoot a little email to somebody, some brand that you think would like your content. And that's kind of all that it takes to get started. And I was like, oh, now that you mention it, like I can do that. I can do that today. Not that hard. I think it's the same thing in art and fitness in particular. For making paintings, it's like, yeah, people, they want to work themselves up to paint some really complex thing. And it's like, you kind of just have to start by painting just anything to start, just learn how to use the medium and get paint moved around. Then you're good. Same with fitness. It's like, just buy a kettlebell, a really light kettlebell, just familiarize yourself with moving it around. It's not that hard. You don't have to go to the gym and like bench press or do any of these really complex things right from the jump. You can just go for it. So, besides not having transportation at the moment and can't afford a gym, the gym intimidates me. Yeah. So I think exactly for my advice to you, if you are keen on hearing my input, is that if the gym is intimidating, recognize that that's due to two things. And the first thing is that you probably have an action unfamiliarity. You're not even sure what you would do when you get to the gym. And the second thing is that the location itself is intimidating. It's like people are out there, they're doing all this crazy stuff. You've never been to this space. It's kind of like going to like a new like bar or a new club or a new like cafe or anything that you're not familiarized with going there. So you don't know what to expect. So it kind of is this like amorphous, intimidating thing. So my recommendation is that you solve the first one, action unfamiliarity, at home. So you don't have to do anything crazy if you want to start building muscle. You can just start by doing push-ups. Like literally that's step one, step zero. Move your body around in any capacity throughout the day. Start by just building a habit of doing push-ups. Even better, if you want to start doing weight training and resistance training, I recommend getting like a really light kettlebell. Like simply the fact that I have the habit of like this thing is around my apartment, it cost me like $20, and I can just be like, okay, I'm building muscle right now, and then I can put it down. Not that hard. Like truly to just familiarize yourself with some basic movements like this, or if you're like doing maybe like side crunches, any of this stuff you'll just explore. And thinking of it as like exploration, especially at home, you're building a routine that you can then use later. So when you have that familiarity, it becomes way easier um, to translate that into the location that you want to do it in because they have better equipment. But like begin with the easier steps first. So cool. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any thoughts about that or if that is not clear. But yeah. Okay, so coffee is going, kind of. I'm gonna get these beans going. I'm like really tempted to. Oh, I guess I'll float my camera over here. We can do that. Let's get this on here. I'll show you guys what my coffee setup looks like. It's a little bit crazy over here, but you know. So yeah. What else can I talk about for fitness? I do really fundamentally believe that that is the main thing that you can utilize in order to start building muscle. I will say that I am working on like a kettlebell course. So again, in trying to just do the minimum thing rather than building up to this like giant thing that is a hurdle and you're like, I don't know how to start it. I'm trying to release like a really simplistic version of it where I find that it's effective, but not necessarily intimidating. And for me, I mean, like, I'm trying to build this thing out. I've thought, oh, I need to have this course and it needs to be sophisticated and I need to have video and I need to have all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't think I need that. I think I just need like an effective PDF that outlines all of these steps, maybe has a workbook attached to it. So I'm building that out as a draft right now. I'm pretty close to being done with it. And then eventually I'm going to expand it so that it does in fact have some videos and some other effective ways that we can move forward with some of this fitness stuff. So let's get a filter here. Nailed that. And I'm trying to think of a better way. I really do miss being able to live stream with music. That is one downside of YouTube. I wonder if I could just get some like free domain, free use music. I don't really know. License free music. That's probably the term that I'm looking for. Hard to say. So definitely worried about getting filmed and made fun of online and jerk gym goers. Yeah, I mean, I will say in my experience, I have never been. I mean, I go to a gym where they don't really enable people to record. I go to like a really ratty EOS. It's a gym. It's totally decent. The reason that I say that it's ratty is because it's just so packed in there, and I've never really like had to worry about that. People will record themselves from time to time, but I know that they're not really supposed to. Not like a huge prevalent concern. I will say that I think if you work on stuff at home, then you are definitely apt to not have that problem, obviously. And I will say, once you're kind of familiar with these movements, like I still will go to the gym and do stuff that I don't know how to do and like maybe look stupid doing it, but it's not really like that big of a concern for that small slice of me experimenting with the move. As you build that familiarity at home, like if you are very confident in knowing how to do push-ups well and know how to do bicep curls well, you can go to the gym and do those and like nobody's gonna bat an eye, nobody's gonna look at you. The only time that I'm ever like, I look at somebody doing something in the gym and I'm kind of like giving them a second look is if they're doing something that is like catastrophic to their health. Like if they are totally out of alignment with their deadlift form or they're doing something above their head and I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. But I don't know. I find that people in the gym are generally pretty nice, and I think you can safeguard, if you're still worried about it, you can safeguard against that by potentially aligning on the actions first, figure out how to do those baseline moves, as I mentioned, and it'll take you really far. So every time I make this coffee, I feel like the pour over, like it finishes really fast, but I'm pretty sure I dialed it in, so it's kind of weird. Who knows? Hopefully that helps. Cool. How long have we been live here? Can't even say. Probably an hour? Yeah, seems like we're coming up on an hour. Cool. Well, that might actually be it for me then, if that was an hour of living. So stay tuned for the next one. I really do appreciate you joining. And yeah, this is probably going to be episode 1. I'm going to work on this painting for a little bit longer, especially while I have some stuff that is a little bit wet. Actually, you know, let's just get this done that I was considering here. I made this slightly lighter mix. I think this whole section over here can be this light color. And I want to get this done so that I can look at it again and determine whether or not I'm going in the right direction, because I am going to go jot over to the cafe, and I think it always helps to have something in like a pretty finished state so that I can at least determine if I'm on the right track when I get a first glance at it next time. So let's just do that. And this is where that house is. I'd love to actually do a little loose negative space outline of that house. So we're gonna save that for a minute. I think that looks good. Kind of like, it's weird at the level of expertise and technical training and proficiency that I have as an artist, because often, like, so I'm reading this book, Alla Prima 2, and in the book he talks about starting, and he talks about trying to do things correctly the first time. And I generally subscribe to that. I think that, again, it's one of those things where in my philosophy, I think it's always better to just start and not like make yourself super worked up about being like, am I getting it right? I like to use painting as an exercise of like, I'm connecting with my body, I'm connecting with myself, and I'm not really worried about being correct, so to speak. Which I think that is the downside of doing a commission or something where you're trying to be like super realistic or representational, in the fact that you are attached to an outcome. And I think having that attachment to your outcome is a little bit dangerous, because it makes you stress about whether or not your outcome will be effective. So in the book, I agree with his philosophy of trying to be like, when you start a painting and when you're working on stuff, do it right the first time. Especially as you're setting yourself up for the later stages of your painting. Yet, I see the immense benefit in just starting and being okay with getting things wrong as often as possible. Which I think he probably does say at some point in the book. I think that I'm not like super far along into it, but maybe about a third. But yeah, it's I think it's just better to start and not really stress about it, because otherwise you probably wouldn't even do it in the first place, and that's kind of whack. I think it's better to just go for it. But I kind of shoot from the hip in a lot of capacities, so. Okay, let's get this house outlined. Not gonna worry about the bushes. One sec here. Sorry about that. Cool. So the outline for this house, let's see if I can just at least get the vertical element of it correct. I'm already a little bit into it, so perspective. It's not a very big house. It's not nearly vertical enough. Well, let's see. I think that's too high. It's really a pretty low house. I think for my own sake, though, I do want to emphasize it because that was a key feature of this commission is that it's really into like structures and barns and things like that. So I think I'm gonna actually maintain. I'm gonna exaggerate the height a little bit. Maybe we'll come down just a smidge, just a smidge. Yeah, that looks about right to me. And again, this blue really does come pretty far out. So I actually no, I'm totally wrong on that. That's like it pretty much sits like right here. Super wrong, super off on that. Yeah, the inside, the edge of it is like over here. That's what happens when you don't do a drawing. And then it kind of jots, there's a little line like that. Much better, okay. Got my little ghost barn, ghost cabin. And then it's just bushes, just bushes. There's a second house, it's just barely peeking up. Cool. So that looks pretty good to me. We're gonna have this as like more of a lighter cloud form. This is gonna be the lightest light. I'm gonna get that in stat. Yep, pretty much gonna use actual white for that, and then that will inform the rest of what I'm doing, especially as I come back over any of this stuff with some substantial amount of texture. And any of this stuff, I do kind of want to just get like a kind of a soft blend in here. Nothing too crazy. It is kind of a hard edge though, so I don't know. I'm out of this paint. That's a bummer. I need more of that. It's maybe a little on the lighter side. Something like that. Cool. Okay. Any more spots where I need this paint? Probably should just keep continuing to simplify any of this stuff, especially over here. I think I got the rest of it pretty much there though. We've got this cloud. We've got a nice, interesting line that actually I need to figure out later. Slightly darker. I'm gonna actually smack that on here because I have this dark. Looking good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's evolving. It's how any painting goes, you know? You start out, figure out what you're doing wrong or right or whatever. Yeah, so again, we have an interesting, this is kind of on the darker side right here. Am I doing this in the right spot? Mostly. I'm using a little bit too much paint. Okay, so that's kind of the edge of this like near cloud. It is actually a decent amount of dark. There's another little dark blob right here. We can just kind of get that in the right spot. And then all of this is actually pretty dark. So since it's, I will need to make more of this dark mix, but I want to get this on here. And the tricky thing is that I do have this kind of firm line here that's not quite accurate. We're going to do a little bit of blending. Not my favorite. Cool, something like that. Okay, and then yeah, we have quite a bit of white. Excellent. Cool. And I'm almost now approaching the point where I might use some weird liberty on this and just start putting in some like colors into the sky, but I don't know. I don't know how drab I want it to remain. So anyway, thanks so much for joining this live. Really do appreciate it. Going to be doing more of these hopefully later this week. I can't really say. I was hoping to do a live stream schedule where I'm streaming like Friday night and then Sunday morning, or maybe Saturday night and Sunday morning. Haven't really decided. So this was like the first rough draft of live streams. So thanks for joining, and I'll see you guys later.